Well, I mean, we've been already talking about it. That right now the topic. What is this? It's like a month now since the incident with George Floyd happened, and then since then there've been a couple of other incidences if you've been watching. So it looks like right now what's on the table all across the nation is reform and discussions about where do we go from here, but primarily reform and even more specifically police reform. You understand? So you and I have already talked about it. I mean, I want to talk about reform too, but I want to
Yeah.
talk about personal reform.
Mm.
What we have been teaching and following, and when I say teaching, meaning teaching ourselves and trying to learn on this journey, is about personal responsibility and accountability. And I think that talk about reform or reformation, that's where it starts. You
Mhm.
know, on an individual level first, and then on a collective level second. But certainly we can't talk about reformation, or police reform, or reform of anything without looking at ourselves first, to me. And so that's kind of where the conversation, in my opinion, if I was having this dialogue on any platform about reform, it would be personal reform first.
And this is what everybody's talking about. This is what
Right.
about dismantling the certain police stations or police, units, and reform, and the president put out some type of I don't know, signed some type of legislation the other day talking about reform. This is what our marches and protests are about. We want some justice, right? And we want some sustained legislative change is what we're looking for. So everybody's talking about. But I also understand where we come from, and you and I, and in terms of Align to Enlighten and what Align to Enlighten stands for. And I'm going to be the first to say, I think that what we have to share may not be the most popular opinion. It may not be the most readily accepted opinion as we go through this dialogue today. And that's okay too. I think for those who are ready to hear, they will hear, and if those who are not ready to hear, that's okay too, because everything happens on purpose, everything happens on reasons. So I'm glad that we are here. I'm glad that you are here. I'm glad that I'm here. I'm glad that we're here together. So with that being said, yeah, let's talk about what you were about to say, which was, I think you're about to dive into what you consider to be the first step in reform. I think you're about to talk about, where it begins, where it starts, right?
Right. I mean, I kind of shared it with you the other day that for me, I think it's I've been having this conversation since day one amongst my circle, and I've been watching conversations on media, and people have put this conversation in the category uh, social problems or social crisis,
Mm.
an economic crisis, socio-economic crisis, political crisis. We need to have certain people in office. Need to have social reform or some kind of economic issue, and certainly all those things have to be discussed to me. But going back, like what I was saying a minute ago, this is not a socio-economic crisis or a political crisis. It's a crisis of consciousness to me. This is a consciousness problem that needs to be discussed along with the other uh, action-oriented topics.
Okay.
I feel like you know the non-physical conversation needs to be discussed and put on the table. You and I know from our practice and from our study that you know most of what we see physically comes from the non-physical, and we can't have a discussion about political, social, or economic reform, or um, uh, address those topics without addressing the topic of consciousness first. And
Absolutely.
for me, right, and for me, and I think I can speak for you as well, but for us, consciousness is, as you have already alluded to, what do we mean when we say consciousness? We mean an awareness who we are as individuals and who we are uh, striving to be, and what we're trying to, how we're trying to live our lives on a higher level of consciousness, a higher level of awareness, so that when I come in contact with the ordinary person on the street, I see them as I see myself, as a fellow human being, and I offer them uh, a certain manner of peace and a certain level of love and compassion. So that level of consciousness and that level of awareness is where I think it's not being discussed. It's not being put on the table right now.
Well, yeah, and I 100% agree with all of that. I think that part of that issue too is that we tend to operate from the outside in as opposed to the inside out. For those of us who believe that we have a soul in the first place, it's important to understand the dynamic of the power of that soul and how that relates to our physical world. So, you know, we are all just spiritual beings first. We're all spiritual beings first, and we are physical beings second. But when we don't have that understanding, then we operate from the outside in. We operate from what we see, and we react to what we see from the outside, and then we internalize that as those situations and circumstances and issues and challenges and opportunities. We internalize all those things when we see them happening to us, and we are reacting to those, as opposed to understanding that all manifestation starts from within, right? So if I have a desire, if I have a thought, if I have something I'm looking to achieve, whatever that is, it begins with a thought. It begins with a desire, right? So that's from the inside. And then understanding how to leverage that power that we have, because everything that we see in the physical started as a thought, started as an idea, started as a desire. Everything that's manifested started as somewhere else from a spiritual standpoint as opposed to the physical standpoint. If I said, hey, I got my cell phone right here, and my cell phone is I can see it, I can use it, I can touch it, I can smell it, I can all these things, right? But that cell phone started as an idea. If we remember back to, and I'm going down a rabbit hole, but if you remember back when we was growing up, we had the rotary phone, had the rotary dial on it. There was no such thing as a cell phone. Then, somebody said, well, hey, we want to be more mobile with our communication. So it started as an idea. And we went to the battery pack, big old suitcase type phones you had on the side in the car or whatever, had to charge them things. And, then you went to having what we have today, which has more technology in it than what it took to land the spacecraft on the moon. So understanding that first, I think people, really don't understand the power of what you're talking about in terms of, I have this spirit inside of me, I have this soul inside of me that can command and manifest my desires into this physical world. So when you're talking about reform and we're talking about these changes that we want to see, it's great that we have protesters. It's great that we have people bringing more awareness to the cause. That's what I feel like the protest is doing. You're going to bring more awareness to this cause of reform, and we want things to change. That's great to have that. But when we talk about the sustained change, it has to start from within, and it has to start with that desire from within. I mean, is that what you're saying as well?
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. I think that's why I personally choose not to spend a lot of time on the effect and what I see as manifested, in the physical right now, in terms of um, people dying at the hands of law enforcement. I I choose to look at that, and I would like to use that as the catalyst for the new idea.
Yeah.
I think that the greatest contribution that I personally can give is to let this catapult me into the new
Right.
idea of self reform and self uh, of consciousness in myself, and raising my awareness so that I can, project a vibration, if you will,
Yes.
uh, that will reciprocate and manifest, across the community, so that when I come in contact with other people, what comes from the heart reaches the heart, if you will. And so, I agree wholeheartedly with what you just said. I think that it needs to be understood, because right now, it's just like anything else. People, when you faced with a problem, it's right here in front of your face. It's like immediate sense of urgency that needs to take place right now to fix this problem. You
Right.
know, we are dying at the hands of law enforcement over and over and over again. And so anybody that would be listening to this, that's where they would probably start, as
Yes.
opposed to, going into the root cause, or, what has transpired, that led up to this manifestation. This didn't just happen overnight. It hadn't just happened overnight. It's a systemic issue that has been occurring for as far back as I can remember. And so, in other words, like, for me, the evidence is clear that because it has continued to happen over and over again, and we have responded in the same manner over and over again
Right.
to protesting, rioting. We've even had legislation change. We've had
Right.
the civil rights movement came about, and we from that we saw all kind of legislation that took place, and we benefited from right today.
Right.
So those things certainly have their place. But here we are yet again, faced with the same problem, even exponentially, I would say, in some instances, worse. You
Yes.
know, so
So when you said a second ago, you said something about vibration.
right.
What do you mean by vibration?
Well, what I mean by vibration, uh, in a nutshell, is we all have a certain level of frequency that we vibrate 24 hours a day, even when we're asleep.
Right.
And so that vibration, that frequency, is emitting, pulsating off of each and every human being that walks this earth. And so that when you and I come in contact with one another, our frequencies will either match or they will repel. And based on where you are in your frequency and where I am, would cause that attraction or that repelling away from each other. So when we observe something as human beings, I don't care what the subject matter is, you can't look at something without having a vibrational frequency of it, meaning an attitude, a mood, a disposition, and usually those components are compounded even more so with your past experience,
Yes.
which has shaped your perception about what you're seeing now. So you have a viewpoint about this thing that's happening.
Right.
And so once you observe that and you emit frequency from that, again, no matter what the subject is, the universe also vibrates. And its job is to match what your frequency is with whatever it is, whether it be something that you want or something that you don't want.
Right.
Its job is to bring to you that which you're vibrating,
Right.
the frequency in which you're vibrating. So without going too much deeper into it, that's
Well, no,
kind of it with
we
that.
should go a little bit deeper into that. I think that's fantastic. You
Yes,
know,
sir.
before we had COVID-19, and before my three kids, before they stopped going to school, every day, you know, we would tell them before they leave the house, make a choice on what type of day you want to have. So choose how you want to feel today. So in essence, we're basically telling them, hey, if you have a desire to have a joyful, happy, productive day, then you're going to put your thoughts and your emotions to what that is and what that feels like, which is also going to create a certain vibration, right, from their thought process and from their inner soul. So if I start off my day expecting to have a great day, expecting to have a joyful day, expecting to leave this house and be happy as I'm going about my day, then my emotion is going to match up with what my intention was before I even leave the house. And in doing that, then that's going to also create a vibration for me that I'm emitting to the universe. And the universe is responding to that and reciprocating that I have aligned with, right? Because I set my intention for the day of here's what's going to happen, here's what I'd like to happen. And throughout the day, I remind myself of what it is that I chose, which continues to help me vibrate at that frequency that I started off with in the first place, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then
Mm-hmm.
in turn, the universe or law of attraction is fully at work because it's matching exactly what I intended to do. It's matching my vibrational frequency that I intended from in the first place before I even left the house.
Yeah.
I can see what you're saying as it relates to what we see today, right? And what we see today and what we have seen over and over again when we talk about police brutality, when we talk about police murders, of citizens, when we have seen those things in the past, it has jarred a visceral reaction, especially in the African American community, to say this is unjust. I'm going to feel some type of way about that, and then that creates a vibration that's coming from me because it's drawn by my emotion of what I'm reacting to. Logic says that if I'm reacting to it in this visceral type of way and I'm extremely emotional and angry about that, then the universe doesn't know the the universe is simply responding to exactly what you are emitting, right?
Right.
So if I am completely angry and enraged by what I see, which is normal. I mean,
Right. Right.
hey,
So.
you and I had this conversation with George Floyd about a day or two after the situation, and we were both um, emotionally charged behind the situation. So don't get it twisted. But what it's about is directing that, right? Now it's
Right.
okay, I feel what I feel. Now, how shall I channel that to make sure I get my desires heard to the universe so the universe can respond back to what it is that I am emitting from my vibrational frequency?
Right. So you said something interesting too, because I have posed this question to you numerous times, and about your sons, uh, and what you teach them in this current climate,
Yes.
in this current culture of time that we're in, and you know, you and I have had discussions, and I know very well how you make a conscious choice to when you leave the house, this is what your intention is,
Yes.
and so I would like to hear from you. First of all, the ages of your sons, if you don't mind sharing that,
Yes.
and how first of all, do you feel they're at risk? Yes or no, and elaborate on that. And then past that, if you don't or do, how do you create them to be not at risk, or how help them to be not at risk when you interact? Because you have a son that's about to drive, right?
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so my sons are 16, 13, and 11, right? And my 16-year-old is going to be 17 next month, you know. And do I feel they are at risk? No. No, I don't feel they're at risk at all. And the reason why is because what we teach them is this, right? First of all, um, I don't think that they should be fearful. This is what I tell them. Don't be fearful from anybody. from any man, from any person whatsoever. There's no reason to be fearful as you go about your day. The other thing about it is, it doesn't mean that you have to be some big bad dude walking the streets or whatever, and I'm tough, and it doesn't mean that. I tell them to walk in confidence and walk with an expectation of what it is that they desire. 100% of the time, walk in confidence with an expectation that you will receive what it is that you desire. You have to be proactive from a spiritual standpoint.
Talk to me.
This is what I'm saying when we say you set your intention at the beginning of your day, you remind yourself about that intention throughout the day, and then at the end of the day, you revisit what you said that you wanted, what you intended to do in the first place, and what you intended to feel, what you intended to bring into your life experience. Reflect on that at the end of the day. And the fact is, when you set that intention overall, then at that point, you know that you are controlling it. The only thing that we control on this planet is what we feel. That is the only thing that we control.
Say that again.
The only thing that we control on this planet is what we feel. It's only our job. It's nobody else's job to make us feel a certain type of way.
And why is that important to
so,
take control of how you feel?
It's so important to take control of how you feel, mainly because if you again, it goes back to what we were talking about a second ago, right? Which is I'm emitting a certain vibrational frequency that the universe is responding to. Those emotions that we feel are a catalyst and like a magnet. Emotions are like a magnet, attractors to what the universe is giving us. So it's important to manage what I feel, because if I have an intention, my emotions are going to go along with that intention. You can't have conflicting intention and then an emotion that doesn't support it. You're not going to get what you want. So the way that we teach our children is not that you should be afraid of the police. Is start off with your intention that I'm going to leave this house. My 16-year-old, I'm going to drive from here to the store. My intention is to drive to the store and back, get what I need to get, and be accident free, be completely safe, and not be harmed by anything or anyone. So if you set off with that intention, and that's what you have it in your mind, that's what you expect, that is also generating a vibrational frequency that the law of attraction is responding to.
Let me interrupt you right there. So most people would say that they set that intention without setting it, meaning that, when you wake up in the morning and you plan your errands for the day, your intention is to do just that without, necessarily deliberately, vocalizing that affirmation or even saying it in your mind that this is what you intend to do. You're going to leave, you're going to run your errands, you're going to come back home, have dinner, and that's that. But what I'm hearing you suggest, and of course, I understand, and we're on the same page, is that you have to be deliberate at this point.
Yes.
In other words, your intention about your thoughts and your feelings and thus your actions matters.
Yes.
This is what makes your life matter, if you will.
100%. 100%.
When you say your black life matters, this is what makes your life matter. Period.
Exactly. This is what makes my life matter is setting that deliberate intention every single day. Because you're exactly right. What we do, most of us do, we operate like zombies or we operate like robots, and I'm not, and what we talk about here is non-judgmental. It's completely a safe area. We're not pointing a finger judging anybody for anything. We all are on this journey, and we all are different places in this journey. So there's no judgment to anybody on this at all. But what most of us do, we fall into a routine, right? So I'm gonna get up in the morning. I'm gonna have some breakfast. I'm gonna drink my coffee. I'm gonna rush out the door to work. I'm gonna work all day long. I'm gonna come back home, cook some dinner, help these kids with this homework or whatever. Everybody's gonna get a shower, a bath, whatever. Watch a little TV. Boom, we're going to bed. Then we're gonna wake up the next day and do the same all over again. Most of us don't even think about the drive into work because you are so programmed. You don't need to think about Well, because you make the drive every day. So I don't need to think about it because I just know what I'm doing. I fall into a complete haze of what's going on because this is what I drive to work every single day. I take the same exact route, the same exact everything, right? Now, I might have a passing thought on my way to work about what I have to do today. I got into it with an employee yesterday, whatever that is, and I want to have a better day today. Okay, we might have those kinds of passing thoughts. What I relate that kind of process to is something that I heard Deepak Chopra say, which I thought was amazing. Actually, I read it in one of his books. It was like, just kind of summarize it real quick. When we think about our journeys of our days, we can basically have two choices. We can be, if you can imagine life as a bustling river, like a rapids, and the river is going. There's lots of tumultuous things happening in that river. So imagine that being life, right? Life as this category 5 rapid. All this water is rushing, is ups and downs, topsy-turvy. Imagine that being life. And imagine we are a leaf that is falling from one of the trees, and we're that leaf that's on that river, going down this river. With us operating in this routine of things without setting deliberate intention, we become the leaf on the river.
Yeah.
So bouncing around, going down the river, reacting to what's happening around us.
Right.
We have set no deliberate intention.
Right.
That's what that is to me. Or we can choose to say, I'm going to be the motorboat on that category 5 rapid. I have a rudder, I have a motor, I have, I can steer this thing wherever I want it to go.
Right.
And that's what happens when I set my deliberate intention. I say, okay, I'm going here, I'm going this way. Yes, all this tumultuous things are happening around me, but it's not going to deter my journey. I'm going this way. This is going to happen. And that's what I teach my children, is that set your deliberate intention. You're in control of it. You have the ability and are empowered, spiritually empowered, to manifest what it is you want in your life. This ain't no magic. This ain't no pixie dust. This is real. This is all.
Right. Yeah. So if I could jump in, so that right there is very key to me, because one of the things that I feel very strongly about is empowerment, and I feel that and disempowerment, and I feel that going back to the consciousness conversation, and we're talking about awareness. Now we're talking about deliberate intention as it relates to creating something. I feel that that's one of the biggest things that we, quote unquote, suffer from in mankind, in as human beings, is the lack of consciousness, meaning the lack of awareness. And when you're not aware of something, you're not aware, meaning I don't know my own true power. I'm not aware of the power that I have to influence my surroundings.
Right.
This is sometimes can be a tough thing to believe, that you actually have power to influence external things that take place in your life.
Right.
For one of the reasons, because it kind of contradicts, like, the way we've been taught and trained in this society is to blame somebody else. I don't care what the situation is. Blame my wife, blame your husband. My boss is my boss's problem. It's my children are acting crazy. The police, this police officer is doing something to me. And all of these things may be true in terms of another person's behavior. But what I think that people need to understand and come to internalize is the tremendous impact and influence that you potentially have on your own life and your own life experience. And you just spoke to that in terms of deliberate intention and the power behind making a deliberate intent from the moment that, and we haven't talked about what to do prior to going to bed that will add to that, you know, your night ritual versus your morning ritual, if you will, that
Right.
will even add more exponential power to your day, so that you create a risk-proof situation for your life.
Exactly.
Your chances. This doesn't mean that you won't have a rendezvous with something you don't want to experience, right?
Right. Right.
But what it does mean is that now you've empowered yourself and you have the best leverage possible
Mm-hmm.
for the best outcome if you have a situation, because
Mm-hmm.
you're going into it with a mindset already of resolution, of peace, of,
Yes.
you know, conflict resolution, if you will.
Right.
And so your chances of something happening to you is way low.
Right. And a great point. Exactly. It does help reduce your chances or opportunities of running into conflict. That's what you intended in the first place. But also, even if you are confronted with conflict or a situation, an unwanted situation, and this is where enlightenment is so vitally important. Enlightenment is being aware. That's the fundamental definition of enlightenment is awareness. So even if you set that deliberate intention in the morning and you're reminding yourself of it throughout the day, and then boom, out of nowhere, seemingly, you're confronted with conflict. You're confronted with, whatever the situation is that you do not want, this unwanted situation. Enlightenment says, okay, in the middle of that situation, you have to provide context and be aware of what you decided in the first place. So here it is, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, whatever, and I set my intention at 7 a.m. this morning, and 3 o'clock in the afternoon, boom, here comes this big disruption to my day. This is conflict. These people that's in my face. This is about to be out of control. Well, you have a choice in the middle of that situation. Remind yourself at that point, try to be aware. It's easier said than done. Don't get it twisted. It's very easy said as opposed to being done and put into practice, but it takes practice. So when you are confronted with that conflict or that unwanted situation, you have to remind yourself again, what was my intention when I started this day? My intention was to be safe. I tell my son, my intention was to go to the store in this car and come back without incident, without accident, and also be safe in everything that happened. That was my intention. Reminding ourselves of that intention in the middle of the conflict gives us, again, a vibrational frequency
Right,
that the universe is responding to.
right.
So if I'm confronting, if you and if I don't know you, Edward, and we are in the grocery store or whatever, and whatever happens, I bump into you, you bump into me, and there's a confrontation about to happen, then I can simply remind myself of what was my intention. And immediately, my entire demeanor, my disposition, my tone and my voice, everything is going to align with what I decided in the first place, if I allow it to. And
That's very. Go ahead.
and then when that frequency, like you said a little bit ago, my heart is speaking to your heart at that point. So even if you might be angry as I don't know what, you ready to fight me because I bumped into you or whatever, but I'm not offering you that same energy, then that's going to de-escalate the entire situation
And that's across the board. You would you
across
would
the
you
board.
would suggest that would even be with law enforcement.
Absolutely.
So I was in the and I shared this story with you already. You've heard it. So I was in it about 3 weeks ago. No, so a little about 4 to 5 weeks ago now.
Yeah.
And of course I had my PE on, I had my mask on, and I was shopping and I was in the line, and there was a gentleman in the line row next to me that didn't have a mask on, and he sneezed, and he
Yeah.
didn't cover his mouth. He just sneezed. He tried to sneeze it to the ground, and
Yeah.
so I was infuriated. Now, uh, I make my intentions clear every morning, just like you. I say make it known to the universe out loud, and I make it known spiritually as well, without saying
Right.
a word. How I want my day to go.
Yes.
So he sneezed, and I was very very upset, and I let him have it in terms of uh, you know that told him that's why he should have his mask on.
Yeah.
Uh, for that reason right there, that he sneezed, and his response to me was, well, it's I got seasonal allergies, and I, with some explicit words, told him, you need to have your mask on
Yeah.
for that reason. And so, in this exchange right here, another gentleman felt inclined to jump in and say something to me, told me that you got that mask on, and it ain't doing blank blank blank. And he said it very aggressively, and he was walking past me as he said it to me, almost in a confrontational way. But by the time it registered to me what he said, he kind of walked by me, but he turned around with some more kisses and basically challenged me right there in the store, with a few things. And so right then, there's a decision I had to make, right? So and you and I, we come from different backgrounds, not different, the same background, but I mean, meaning different backgrounds. The things that we have, our life experiences have taught us some things up to this point. I'll just say it like that. So we come from serious backgrounds. We were raised in neighborhoods, and we don't have to go into any of that right now. But suffice to say that I was very close to putting on a clown suit, if you will.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, I tried to put it on, but it didn't fit. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It didn't fit because I have been practicing something for a while now. So anything outside of this doesn't feel right to me.
Exactly.
So even when I was about to engage him, again, just based on words, nothing had transpired. There was no threat to me, but just from words exchanged, when I was about to kind of go left a little bit, I felt uncomfortable.
Right.
And so I did, just speaking to your point, to just take that second and say, okay, what is my objective right now? My objective is to get what I came in this store for and leave.
That's it.
And so I could not offer him anything of peace besides silence, and to make sure that I refocused on what it is I was there for. And that's what happened. And, of course, everything. But I left that store. It was a reminder to me of what we're talking about. Because and this is what I would want the listeners to understand, at any point, in any moment, you're going to be confronted with an opportunity to make a decision. And the decision primarily is going to be, what you think and how you perceive something to be transpiring.
Right.
And your action behind that is going to dictate, a lot of other things. So
exactly right.
I want to share that.
Yeah, man. That's a great example right there, man. And I love the fact that the clown suit didn't fit, because you know what, it takes that takes awareness. That takes a bit of enlightenment. And again, you and I have been on this journey for a while now, and but that's just testament to say we've been on this journey for a while, man. But it's still testament to say you still are confronted. I'm still confronted with situations where I have a choice. You have a choice to make.
Right.
Those choices should be aligned with our daily intentions of what we expect to be and what we want to have happen. Regarding this whole everything that's going on right now. Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, the countless others, brother that was in Central Park, and I mean, just a number of people, the list goes on forever, okay? What I would love everybody to know, if they don't take anything away from this conversation that you and I are having right now, I want everybody to understand exactly what we've already been talking about. It's to set that deliberate intention, because you can carry that intention not only for your own individual self, but if I have a desire, my desire right now is for reform, but I want it to be sustainable, legislative type reform. Those are the things that I think start to make an impact in our country regarding things that we see right now. So I'm setting an intention of what I expect everything that you, again, everything that we see in the physical right now, whether it be laws, lobbies, whatever that is, certain bills that we want to see, all those things that have been manifested started as a thought. So if we have an intention and a desire and an expectation to see reform, then let us align ourselves, align our energy, align our vibrations with those expectations. And what's going to happen is the universe, because of law of attraction, will start to deliver opportunities in our path because we have set that intention, because we have channeled our emotion of anger towards here's what we desire to happen next. And we continue to focus on those things, then that is what is going to be delivered as a part of an opportunity that comes in our path. It's not necessarily about, hey, I have this intention and magically tomorrow, poof, it's going to automatically happen. It all adds up. The little steps add up to the larger journey, right? So if you and I can agree, and in the Holy Bible it says, hey, where two or more are gathered in his name, so therefore am I, right? So if you and I, Edward and Jean, agree that, hey, here's our intention, here's what we want to see happen in terms of reform, and be specific about it, focus on it, have an expectation of it, envision what it looks like, have put our emotion into all of that on what it looks like and what it feels like. Law of attraction, that vibration that we are emitting from those thoughts, from those words, consistently, that consistent focus, law of attraction works, and it delivers right back to us in our path. And then next thing you know, tomorrow, next week, whatever it is, something across my path, something across your path, and we'll say, man, look at that coincidence right there. We were just talking about this the other day.
Right.
And look at that. I got an opportunity right now to help this situation right. Man, look at that. That's not coincidence at all. That is the law of attraction delivering to you what you intended in the first place. And that's how things are manifested. We can manifest our days by setting our intentions in the morning, revisiting them throughout the day, and then coming back to them again at night to evaluate. We can also do the same thing with anything that we consider as major. The universe has no discernment as to what's major and what's minor. There is no discernment of that in the universe whatsoever.
Right.
It's simply about having the right frequency and aligning with that frequency, and it will be delivered to you. That's
right.
What it is.
Well, I just think that just to pigtail on what you're talking about in terms of takeaways, what I would like to see people do is take more personal accountability. And what I mean by that is just to be more consciously aware of the vibrational frequency that you are emitting, or be more consciously aware of,
Yes.
in layman's terms, your mood, your disposition, your outlook on
Yes.
life, your outlook on law authority in this time right now. And you can't help but observe something that we're experiencing and feel some kind of way. After you feel that way, then, and if you're upset about it, take that energy and turn it towards something positive.
Yes.
Like if you're displeased with something, anything in life, then I feel you have a responsibility to yourself to make a change.
Right.
I would tell anybody listening, stop looking and expecting somebody else to change their behavior.
Right.
Like, I don't care what you put in place, people are gonna do what they're gonna do.
Right.
You understand? You just have to make your mind up that you're not gonna agree with what it is that somebody else has decided that they're gonna do. And of course, I understand. Don't get me wrong. When somebody, and this is a conversation we're gonna have to have next time, in terms of this quote unquote systemic racism that people feel like they have defaultly become a part of, with
Right.
nothing to do of themselves. So that
Right.
we have to fall under the authority of law enforcement as
Right.
civilians.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure, we're going to talk about that, in terms of, how what we're talking about relates to that, and how you can have an impact on another human being that's in
Yes.
authority over you. You know what I'm
Exactly.
saying? And so I just want people to understand, leave this conversation in, empowering yourself
Yes.
personally at home right now.
Exactly.
Uh, you were gonna say.
Exactly. No, I agree. I think that is vitally important to understand that the power that we actually do have, and how others are reacting to our vibrations. You know, this is the power that we have. You can only control what you feel and control what you think. But what's funny is, and what's interesting is, others also are going to feel that, right? So my soul is speaking to your soul before a word is ever even uttered. Okay. And it's important to understand that power within ourselves.
Right.
That's the way that we start to change things and manifest things and create it the way that we want to see it. I want
Right.
to share a different story, if you don't mind, because that demonstration gives an example. Because I think a lot of times people hear or read, or they might hear us speak, or they might read something that we posted, or even reading in our book, and they kind of might feel like, that's just kind of that mystical pie in the sky, metaphysical mumbo jumbo. There's nothing really real to that or whatever. This is reality I'm living right now. This is reality. They talking some craziness, right? What I want you to do is provide an example, please, of the time that I'm very familiar with, when you were pulled over by the police, and what
Okay.
happened next.
Okay. Yeah. So this was about 3 years ago now, um, and I was out late, and I got pulled over by the police, and immediately, I responded internally like most of us do. Like, what the hell am I getting pulled over for? I wasn't speeding. It was about it was really at night. So I was like the only one on the street, and it was just me and him. And so he pulled me over, and he said that I was going a little bit faster than I thought I was. So he asked for my license. I gave him my license, and lo and behold, my license had been suspended for an unpaid ticket. So uh, even before then, it needs to be noted that at this time 3 years ago, I was living my life every day, internalizing this information. That has to be, really understood. I was spending, as you have, you and I on a journey together, countless hours of practice and, internalization of how attraction works, how intention works, and how, I have power within myself. So
Right.
all of that was in me. So when he
Mhm.
pulled me over, and even though I did feel some kind of way, I wasn't afraid, or I wasn't angry or anything like that. I was more concerned about what was going on. So when he told me that, he told me I had, my license was I had a warrant because I had an unpaid ticket. He told me he's going to have to take me in, and so I was disappointed. To jail, absolutely.
Uh-huh.
And so as soon as he said that to me, he followed it up with saying, "But hold on 1 minute." He walked back to his police car. He was back there for a little while. Next, another police officer drove up. So, you know,
And we
I'm
know
thinking
we expect
exactly.
exactly.
I,
Yeah.
I, I now I am a little bit concerned. Okay, and so they
But
were
you
back
stay
there.
steadfast in
I
what you
stayed
believe.
steadfast. I stayed
Yes, sir.
steadfast in what I believed and how I felt. I felt
Yes.
secure. I felt secure, and so they were back there talking. He walked back up to me on my driver's side. The original officer, the other guy, walked up like they do on the other side, and so he said, "Hey, I had my partner to come here because I am going to have to take you to jail. But if you want, we can pull your car over here on this church parking lot, lock it so that it's not impounded. All right.
Wow.
This is the first
Wow.
thing that happened, and so I've had many run-ins with the law.
Yeah.
I'm 51 years old. And like I told you earlier, we had a lot of different backgrounds. So, but he said that we could park your car over here on the church parking lot if it's okay with you. And that's why I had my partner to come. I said, certainly, by all means, I appreciate that. I was very, very, very thankful that he would, because I'm very familiar with the neighborhood where I was, and that church was only about 4 minutes from where I live.
Yeah.
So sure enough, he got me out of the car. He parked the car while I stood outside. They parked it. And so the next thing that happened was he said the police precinct, which is here in Bartlett, Tennessee, is like it's right around the corner. I don't have to put any the protocols for me to put handcuffs on you, but I'm not going to do that.
Wow.
Right. And so he put me in the back of the car.
Well, he was feeling your energy. He had to be feeling your energy as well.
He had to be. He had to be. He put me in the back of the car. He took me in. They ran my fingerprints. They booked me. I had over $1,000 in my pocket. My bond was like $113. In other words, if I just paid that right then, I could just leave back out like I can. And so they said they would not allow me. They couldn't. I couldn't use my own money to bail. I was like, it said $113. I was like, okay, cool. I got that right there. And they were like, no, you can't use that. Use your own money. You got anybody you can call. And this is about 2:30 in the morning. Of course, I could have called somebody, but I didn't want to. I didn't want to bring anybody. I said, well, no, I don't really have anybody I could call. I live alone. Blah blah blah. I'm single. Blah blah blah. And so the people, bruh, immediately, the dispatch lady that booked me right there, she said, well, let me see what I got in my purse.
Yeah.
She pulled out some money, and then she hollered down the hallway, hey, this guy needs $113. I got $42 right here. Is anybody? People.
Police officers in the.
Police officers. Listen, police officers. So people storming up, white and black, pulling out their wallets, pulling out and so it took about six or seven people. And they were putting coins on the table and everything. And they came up with $113, bro. And at that point, I never left standing there. They took my picture and everything. As soon as that happened, all of this happened in a span of about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Said, I'm going to take you back to your truck. And so I said, and so the conversation we had on the way back, he said, man, this doesn't usually go this way. He said, I pull people over, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
All of my colleagues are afraid.
Yeah.
He said, I want to be honest with you. When we pull an African-American over, especially because at that time, some other incident had just happened.
Right.
And he said that, we're just on edge and we want to go home like you want to go home.
Yeah.
That's all we're here to do is just do a job and to try to do it as best we can, most of us. And I said to him, that's the way we feel too. When you pull us over, we're afraid. Right. You're the one with the gun. Right. And some of us do have weapons in our vehicles, but more importantly, you're in authority over us, and we see what's happening in the culture, and we're afraid. And we both had a conversation, man, to say, if we just would start recognizing each other as men, in this instance as men, as women, whatever, but start recognizing each other as human beings. Right. Just on an objective to either get where we're going, and you have an objective to do your job, that things would oftentimes go just like it just went right then. Yes. And so that was a real life epiphany for me. I don't feel like I was lucky. I don't feel like that happened just because I was a nice guy. I don't feel like any of it. I feel wholeheartedly that because of my vibration that I had been practicing. Right. My outlook, because like I know, I've had outlooks on police for a long time that you've had to tap me on the shoulder about and say, hey, remember, that's not what you want to walk around with. Right. So I had been deliberately practicing, man, and it took a while for me to look at police and not feel a disdain when I see them. You understand? Right. When I say a while, like over there, that I can sincerely feel in my heart, these people just trying to do their job. They don't mean me any harm. Right. And so I felt like that was a culmination that incident was God and the universe showing me you're on the right path. This is
Yes.
what happens when you follow these universal laws and principles,
Right.
and that's what happened.
Because following that universal law and principle allowed you to manifest the desire of your heart. I'm trying to go home. That's all I'm trying to do right now.
Right.
I think, first of all, I think it's a fantastic story. And as we maybe wrap this up and conclude, I think that the main thing that I really want, and I can speak for you as well, we want our people who are watching this to know, in the midst of everything that's going on right now, the political situations that we see in the White House, the police situations, the brutality, the flat out murder, the racism, all these various things that we see right now. Again, the universe doesn't know or doesn't qualify any of these situations as being too big or being too small. What I want all of our people, everybody who's even watching, it's not our people, but everybody who can see this, is to understand that when we set our deliberate intentions and focus our energy and our emotions on the delivery and manifestation of those intentions and those desires, when we remain focused and steadfast in that space, then the universe has no choice but to deliver to us what we intended in the first place. And to make it even better, when we do this on a collective level. So just as we have thousands and thousands of protesters in the streets, which is great. I think, look, the more protests, the more awareness. So I think that's fantastic. Now imagine everybody who's out there protesting having one singular intention, one singular desire, which is reform, we talked about. And they keep that in them. And they set that intention every day and that expectation every day. And that then channel those emotions to understanding that, yes, we will have reform, sustainable legislative reform. That has no choice but to be delivered and manifested into our experiences, individually and also collectively. We have that spiritual power to be able to do that. God has given us that power to co-create with him, to be able to do those things. All we need to do is tap into that and believe that and see that and envision it happening. And that's exactly what will happen as long as we stay on that same path.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
Personal consciousness, individual and collective consciousness being delivered with your intention.
Yes.
Absolutely. Being delivered with your intention.
Yes. And, I want to say, listen, I appreciate anybody and everybody who is taking the time to sit here and listen with us today. This is our first of many more to come, hopefully. Just conversations, conversations. And this is, again, Edward Muhammad and Gene Black coming from Align to Enlighten. And it's all about aligning your desires and enlightening your soul, right? So we're going to sign off on that, brother. Peace, man. Peace.
All right.